Hello, all. We are here with award-winning singer-songwriter Ed Roman. How are you doing today, Ed?
I'm well, my friend. It's cold here in Canada. We had a blustery night last night of sustained winds of about 60 miles an hour for close to 8 to 12 hours, and everybody's digging each other out this morning.
But you've toured the U.S. plenty. You're originally from Canada, correct?
That's right. Born, bred, raised, hatched, however you want to look at it. I'm a Canadian boy.
That's right. So, all right. I got to know, how's the Canadian industry different than that down here in the States, music-wise?
Well, it's funny, American culture has always been so enthusiastic about music and being involved in it. And what's, interesting about playing, and the difference between Canada and the U.S. is that, look, man, between Syracuse and Ithaca and Jersey and New York and Philly, and there's like an hour and a half, an hour, 2 hours. You can kind of move from town to town, but like between Toronto and Winnipeg, there's 24 hours of a lot of open road. Trans-Canada Highway is not where you want to be in the middle of February. It's just like, it's death-defying, white-knuckle driving to get from A to B. So it's the spatial difference that makes it also difficult, because you got to remember, then get to A to B, you're spending more money as opposed to gigging from an hour and a half away. So with that, it's geographically different because of that. It's harder here in Canada. And the other thing about Canadians is that, we tend to look to other places around the world as opposed to, what's going on in our backyard a lot of the time. There's so much amazing music happening in Canada and so many amazing artists that are doing amazing things that a lot of times people don't know who they are until they leave the country, get recognition elsewhere, and then they come back and they're like, oh no, they're Canadian.
Wow.
So and that's synonymous with a lot of music for many years. So there's that kind of interplay that you're always working with and trying to get people interested in what's going on. So it's very different in that regard. I don't want to say Canadians are tame. We can be pretty aggressive when we want to be, but
sure.
But as I say, the American culture is so out there, and like a lot of, as a Canadian, I mean, as a young kid, I fell in love with a lot of American artists, when I was growing up. So it just goes to show you how that kind of works.
Wow, and that surprises me because we keep hearing down here that Canadian artists, they get pushed more on the radio up there. There's a lot less of that payola type stuff that you have to worry about in Canada, and we're under the impression that Canadian artists actually are able to get some exposure in Canada. But you're saying culturally, not really unless they leave, huh?
Well, yes, and the reason is because there's been such a change in the way technology has made it, that much simpler for Canadians to have music and whatever they want to listen to in the palm of their hands, as opposed to having a radio or a radio station. So many small radio stations closed. I mean, the CRTC and everybody that monitors music and getting your license and having an antenna and an amplifier and all that really became just a demographic of the college and the university scene. There's little to none of that happening across the nation when it comes to those pockets. Even in the U.S. and more so years ago when I was even traveling and working, it's I love the fact that from town to town or state to state, there's all these different stations playing different things. And you don't have that going on as much anymore. Even just in simple rotation with, even the country station that's here in my little town, it's 8,000 people. It's not very big. They have 5 stations. There's a main hub that's north of here. But again, if you're not charting, which means money charting, and those other things, you're not in rotation. So that's why internet radio and all these new venues for independent artists to be able to go, hey, look, man, you can listen to the station anytime you want. It doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
It's like having an old transistor radio. It's sort of breeding a new kind of mentality in the way that people are sort of interacting with music. So it is like that in some regard. I mean, even a place like Hughes Room in Toronto, I mean, I love the room and great people play there and stuff, but you got to put $800 down to play.
Wow.
So if you don't make that back at the bar, that's sayonara, $800.
Wow, and of course 180 degrees from Canada, you managed to get yourself out to Jamaica and do some really cool stuff, actually, what I was reading about what you were doing out in Jamaica. I mean, how about you share with us I mean, personally, I want to know about that experience, but let's actually plug plug what you were doing out there first before you tell me about the experience of being in Jamaica.
Well, you know, I think, yeah, man, as a kid, I fell in love with the place, reading books like Treasure Island and hearing about pirates. And, you know, for years, I wanted to go there, right? Like anybody, it's a tropical paradise. It's a jewel in the middle of the Caribbean.
Right.
And my wife and I, working for years, we just said, let's go on a vacation. But, you know, I kind of knew in the back of my mind that we would be kind of that group or couple that leaves the resort and starts to experience the island in a different way. And, you know, for me, it kind of reinvigorated my excitement for life, because there's a lot of people, including Jamaicans, that are saying, like, you know, don't leave the resort. You know, don't leave unless you're with somebody, and da-da-da-da. I mean, my guitar, and when I'm with it and singing and playing to people, sort of like a cross between Linus's security blanket and a machine gun. So I connect with Jamaicans who, in a way, man, you know what, if you're a great athlete or a good musician, you're kind of like in there, because they respect those tactical aspects of the human being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went everywhere from, like, I was in, you know, District 3, Port Royal. I met Bunny Wailer, the last, you know, surviving singing member of Bob Marley and the Wailers. I went to Tuff Gong. I visited places that most people don't get to see, and visited the island, and people's families that I went to houses, you know, for dinner. And, you know, here they are spending their week's earnings to have this meal with you. Yeah. And it's a humbling experience, realizing that there's this other connection that I'm missing in the Western Hemisphere from people on that level. So I wanted to write a tune, and on Letters from High Latitudes, that tune is like in the middle of the record. It's sort of like the heartbeat of the record. And I wanted to bring the attention visually, even with the video. This is what I do. This is what you don't see in the resort. You see the marching bands practicing in the streets and hanging out with Rasta men who are talking about fishing for barracuda, and, you know, all of these things that, you know, you really then feel invigorated. So that's why I keep going back when I can. And at the same time, my wife and I, we try to give back. We send shipping barrels of things that we collect, or do the dollar store dive one day, or whatever it is, so that, you know, because the things that we take for granted that are sitting around in our garage or basement that we don't use, they need stuff like that. So, you know, that's how we kind of connect again on the island with different people, and we become a godparent to a child there.
Oh, very nice.
In the last 2 or 3 years. So that's all why that's that way. And as I said, it's a thriving musical culture. There's so many people playing music all over the island. I mean, not just guitars and, you know, horns, and they make instruments like out of old oil cans and bamboo, and, you know, drum sets out of pots and pans, and it's like a heyday for musicians and artisans when you think about it. And at the same time, it's this beautiful retreat, mental retreat from the quote-unquote umbilical cord of the system, right?
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. That's Ed Roman, and you should definitely Google Ed Roman Jamaica, and you'll get to see a lot of what he's talking about there. There's, I mean, he's shooting a video down there. So tell us what to look for that's coming out next from you, and where we can find it.
Well, hey, listen, everybody, if you want to check out the new record, it came out in June. It's called Red Omen. There's a big rooster on it, and this year's Chinese symbol is the fire rooster. I had no idea, but to hear the album's all red with this rooster on it. And it's filled with fun tunes like Jamaica and stuff from the last record as well, but all new stuff. The singles are out lately. I Am Love, that came out in June, in the latter half of June. Please look for that on YouTube and in social media. It's all over the place. It's already starting to pick up awards and nominations for different things. So it's an album that makes you laugh, think, feel good, and you know, it's a good thing to add to your collection.
Definitely. It's pretty fun. All right, Ed, thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure. Thank you so kindly for having me.